And thanks everybody for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather. This is a YouTube exclusive live stream here. And this one's not going to appear in the normal spots. So yeah, this is our live YouTube exclusive. And we're starting things out looking at the sun here in 94 angstroms. This is a 48-hour SDO movie. And thanks for leaving a comment, Tim Casper. And we see sunspot 2765 setting there in the southwest. Otherwise, not a lot of activity going on. We do see an increase in the solar wind density and a sun-diving comet. We'll show you all about it momentarily. And here's this sun-diving comet you can see right in this area here. Something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And it might appear in the LASCO C2 if it gets close enough without disintegrating. So there is that. And for all of you viewers out there, we are putting the chat on the screen. So if you have some chats that you'd like to share with us during the live stream, please do. Next, looking at HelioViewer to see the fields are not really complex at all. There's some activity up here in the northeastern limb, but nothing resembling any sunspot behavior or anything like that. Here is the 304 angstroms view. Not a lot of filaments. And let's move on to look at some custom views. Here's the setting of sunspot 2765. There is a large filament right in this area. And we'll be keeping an eye on that also to let you know if it happens to eject. And next we've got a 171 angstroms view of the same area. And there's that view. A great view of the magnetic looping there associated with sunspot 2765. And it's probably still a sunspot, by the way, but it's now rotated far enough to the west that we can't see any umbra. And you can see that filament also on 171 angstroms. KP index is currently at 1. And by the way, there's another comet for everybody to lose their you-know-what over now. It's comet F3 Neowise. And this is showing you the anticipated path of the comet. It may appear in the LASCO C2 and C3 eventually. And we're really here to talk about the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which is currently at 70. Kimberly, don't destroy your device, because that's not going to help you out. You're going to end up in a worse scenario, as I've smashed several smartphones over the past couple of years. What are you doing for the final few days of spring, or perhaps of autumn if you're in the southern hemisphere like Kimberly? Only 4.5 days left until the solstice. So please tune into our solstice stream. We'll be streaming live at the moment of the solstice, which will happen at June 20th at 5:43 p.m. my time. We're going to start streaming at something like 5:15 Eastern Daylight Time. So again, tune into that. We'll be streaming live to Twitch, to YouTube, and to Facebook. So join us for the solstice stream. Save the date. And if you ever want to call or text us, you can do so at the smAsho VoIP line. And today I actually have it in hand. So there you go. If you called me right now, it would actually ring. So if you're wondering how to do that, check out talkatone.com. You can add a VoIP phone line to your smartphone. So if you're out of service, you can still make phone calls and place texts. So give us a ring if you like at the smAsho VoIP line at 610-936-9799, country code +1, as we are in the U.S. Here's where stuff is located in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week, as the Earth swings into the Jupiter and Saturn region. And we've got some cosmology topics to talk about before we talk about star charts or anything. How about a lithium-rich Cepheid variable discovered in the Milky Way galaxy, one of only 5? It's talked about on phys.org's Astronomy and Space section, and this is another affront to the nuclear fusion dynamo model and the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, and so on, as this flies in the face of stellar evolutions. Now, this star's got a similar abundance of oxygen and carbon to the Sun, as well as a similar spectra, but it's very high in lithium, and that is not explained through any sort of classical astronomy and cosmology. And let's move on. It's phys.org's astronomy and space section if you want to read about this new lithium-rich Cepheid. Not particularly exciting. And let's talk about how we started making these videos. So, some of you may have noticed when we first started making the videos, we were making daily fake news weather reports. And that was basically just as training to figure out if we could get to maybe 100 subscribers on YouTube. And when we got to about 150, we realized that some people would watch. So we started making some serious content about daily space weather. Now, part of the reasoning behind this was that people like, Ben Davidson, for example, probably have to look at a lot of the same factors that we do. And so we set up these daily space weather videos as a resource for anybody who's studying space weather, whether it's Tamitha Skov or Ben Davidson or whoever else who has about 6 trillion times more subs than we do. We put up the content to show all of the relevant, or at least what I consider relevant data about solar activity and so on, and that's part of the reason why we made the videos. Now, Ben Davidson's been calling for a movement and so on, and we are part of that movement. And while we disagree on a few things, we generally don't disagree on very much. And that's part of the reason why we have the channel. So if you haven't checked out our playlists, check out our playlists. We've got the daily space weather stuff. We've also got Terms Defined, the Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash. We've got some aquarium videos, Smash Lights, where we make clips, and we haven't been doing very much of that lately because we are way too busy, and we are way, way overworked and underpaid. So please visit our links and consider supporting the channel, as we've got a long way to go in 2020 to reach our goals, and we won't even talk about it today. Let's talk about more cosmology stuff. The European Space Agency's Solar Orbiter 2. It's finally sending some data, and it's made its first close approach to the Sun. Now, one cool thing about Solar Orbiter 2 is that it's going to use a gravity assist from Venus to fly way up off of the ecliptic. And it's going to take the most detailed photographs of the solar polar regions that have ever been taken. So it's super exciting. We're not expecting any data from this for a while. I think not until mid-July. We're expecting to see some data from Solar Orbiter 2. So it's very exciting. There's a 9-hour download window every day. And in the later phases of the mission, it will occasionally take up to several months to download all the data because it is a really deep space mission. So if you want to read about that, it'll be all over the Science Wire. That's from SciTech Daily. Also, I would remind our viewers about the Parker Solar Probe. So again, thanks everybody for leaving comments. And what do we have here? I have no idea what y'all be talking about. So, the Parker Solar Probe has completed its 5th pass, which happened on June 9th. And we don't have a lot of data from Parker Solar Probe yet. You can access it on the NASA site and I believe the Johns Hopkins site. So one of the things about the data is there are windows for each instrument. When most instruments are turned off most of the time, and then certain windows turn certain instruments on. And this is an obstacle to looking up the information. So you want to go to the data availability page. So for instance, in 2020, if you want to use the Fields instrument, the only data this year is from January 1st until January 14th. So that'll give you some information there, and you can do all kinds of different data runs there on the Parker Solar Probe Science Gateway, and that is part of Johns Hopkins You can find all that stuff by searching for it on the internet. And since you're viewing the video, you must have the internet. Alright, so here's where stuff is located overhead, and if you're up before dawn, you may notice Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and the Moon and Venus rising before the Sun, very close to the sunrise. Should be very bright if you have a low horizon. Check that out. And let's get back to some data here. GOES X-ray flux is totally flatlined. No surprise there, as we don't see any sort of activity facing the Earth. Proton flux similarly flatlined, and while we do see an increase in the solar wind density, probably an indication of an incoming coronal hole wind stream, it's not a big increase, and it looks like it's already dropping down, and the solar wind velocity is going up. Current phi angles around 300 degrees. Current solar wind density has just come off its highs, which were around 12 protons per cubic centimeter, now down to about, dropping down to about 6. And solar wind speed around 320 kilometers a second, so basically background levels there. Here's a geospace magnetosphere movie. We do cover this every day, and if you want to see older data about geospace, watch our older videos. And this is 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan Geospace Model V1.5, which is based on the space weather modeling framework. Since that refreshed, we're going to let that play all the way through. I would note very large plasmaspheres, which is this empty looking space here and here. And very low levels of electron flux and very large stretched out Van Allen belts, really. Next, looking at ground geospace magnetic perturbations. To see, not very many. There's a small pulse that comes in here around 7:15. And there you can see aspects of that in both the Canadian North Pole, refreshed again, Canadian North Pole as well as the South Pole, which, by the way, the South Geomagnetic Pole, if you weren't aware, has crept out into the Indian Ocean someplace in this area, well off of the Antarctic continent and very far away from the geographic poles. Next, looking at the GOES magnetometer, and we see some pretty spiky activity here, and we could snap back into the North Pole current sheet at any moment. So don't be surprised if you see some pretty sawtooth-like patterns here on the GOES magnetometer throughout the day today. And here's the reason I'm saying it. It's because of the Gong 2 data, looking at the top view ecliptic plane field plot, to show some green area popping up here. Probably an indication that the north solar polar field is gaining in strength, or the south solar polar field is weakening in strength. So don't be surprised if we snap across back into the North Pole and back into the South Pole current sheet at any moment throughout the day, because the magnetic environment can change with zero warning. Keep in mind this data is an hour and 50 minutes old. Let's look at the line of sight field plot, and we see some significant distortions in the B field, shown here in blue. And you can see quite a bit of a wobble there. And it looks like the magnetic activity in the northeast has kind of subsided also. So pretty weak solar activity right now. Very low levels of electron flux, and look at this downward trend since August of 2019. And we are just in a flatlined pattern here. Now, since it looks like there's a coronal hole wind stream coming through right now, I expect the GOES electron flux to stay very low throughout the day. We kind of came off the lows a little bit yesterday, but still haven't seen any sort of warning alert threshold levels for quite several weeks. More like 2 months, actually. And here's the total electron content forecast. This is the entire air column, all the way from the thermosphere down to the ionosphere. And you see fairly low levels here, no surprises there. Expect your GPS to be working pretty much as expected. Next, looking at just one layer of that, it's the ionosphere. This is 6 hours of data. And the ionosphere is looking very weak here on the sun-facing side. Let's bring up the latest image. That's a little more normal. Actually, it's a little bit anomalous there, as we see pretty low levels of charge here on the sun side, and pretty anomalous looking charged up and discharged regions on the nighttime side. So a little bit wobbly there in the ionosphere. That image is from 8:15 UT. And let's go to earthquakes. The past 24 did not see any 6+ magnitude quakes. We saw some deep quakes. Let's scroll up the list. Largest of the past 24 was this 5.7 magnitude in Tajikistan. Let's hope it's not the predecessor to a larger quake, as this would be about a 6.3 if it happened at the surface. And hopefully not too many buildings crumbled there in Tajikistan. Please leave a comment if you're viewing from the Middle East. And so one other deep quake kicked off here, a 4.4 in Argentina. While I was showering and making coffee, it's at 133 kilometers depth. We see some seismic activity with volcanoes. Let's go down the list of volcanoes. Shivaluch is erupting. 17,000 foot ash plume there. Dakona exploding. Flight level 7,000 there. And here's an uptick in the Aleutian Islands. Makushin in the Aleutians has had its alert level raised to yellow due to an earthquake swarm. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 19,000 there. Sangay appears to be increasing in activity. Flight level 23,000 there. Revenador back on the list, exploding. 16,000 foot ash plume there. And Sabancaya exploding. Produced a significant volcanic ash pulse, producing a flight level of 26,000 feet. Please do not attempt to pole vault the caldera. Are you made in China? Have you learned how to say China? China, China. Learn how to say China. Say it aloud. Say China. Come on. Say China. China. It's very therapeutic to say China. So say it aloud. One thing that's not made in China is our channel. We provide all kinds of different services, whether it's news crawler services, telling people about coronal mass ejections long before anybody else, including NOAA and NASA, and doing all kinds of other useful things like exposing sharticles. Check out this sharticle. You want to hear some nonsense? Let's talk about what caused Snowball Earth to form. Now, does this just inflame you and make you very angry about how stupid the state of a lot of science is right now? Check this one out. Guess why? Guess why Snowball Earth happened about 530 million years ago? Can you guess? Can you guess? I'll give you a moment. I'm just going to let it kind of scroll down here a minute. So from approximately 1 billion to 540 million years ago, we had a Snowball Earth scenario. Were you aware of that? Well, guess what caused it? Guess what caused it, folks? According to this sharticle from phys.org's Sharticle-Filled Earth section, what caused it was very low carbon dioxide concentrations. Are you kidding me? What a joke. Wow. Sharticle exposed once again from phys.org's Earth section, which is so full of sharticles that it even made it into the definition of the word sharticle. Use it in a sentence. Phys.org's Earth section is rife with sharticles, as people foolishly still believe that Earth's climate is somehow controlled by carbon dioxide. What a joke. Let's talk about the Twitter mob. And here's why you can't have nice things, folks. Here is why you can't have nice things. And thanks for leaving comments, everybody. We appreciate it. We do regret that we can't watch the live premiere with you, but I guess it's even more exciting and interactive because, check it out, you can actually get involved in what the content includes. Cheers. This is why you can't have nice things, folks. This is why you don't want democracy, folks. If you have direct democracy, guess what you have? Mob rule. For you American viewers out there, you live in a constitutional republic. So when people like Bernie Sanders say, we're undermining this here democracy here in the U.S., American democracy, it's nonsense. You live in a constitutional republic. And here's what happens when the Twitter mob takes over. Now, I'd like to welcome Zero Hedge back to Twitter, as apparently Twitter has, quote, made an error by banning Zero Hedge from Twitter. Let's talk about a soccer player from Serbia, Alexander Katai. Well, his wife tweeted something that caused him to get banned from Twitter. Why? Because it makes zero sense. So what happened was his wife printed Ma pobij govna bre, which means kill the S's. And that didn't turn out well among the Twitter mob. Now, this guy plays, or he used to play, for the what is it? The Los Angeles something or other, a soccer team out of California. And even though he apologized, he still got fired. And I think they've been banned. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to read about it, it's on Zero Hedge. Let's talk about people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Now, you notice the way they brilliantly wore these scarves here? Well, guess what that is on there? That is the tribal symbolism of a Ghanan tribe. And guess what that tribe used to do? Sell slaves. Yeah, that's right. They're taking a knee here, I guess to shame Trump, I believe, is when this complete virtue signaling nonsense happened. So in any case, are you familiar with public sector unions? Public sector unions are a revolving door for Democrat money. Think about it. If you work for the police, or if you're a teacher, now police unions aren't as bad as teachers unions, but nonetheless, public sector unions are a revolving door for Democrat money. Why? Because people who work for the government are now using taxpayer dollars to pay their union dues, and then the union lobbies for a bigger government. You see what I mean? Look, I'm fine with private sector unions. Public sector unions should not be a thing. It should be illegal to contribute taxpayer dollars for lobbying efforts, which is what public sector unions do. And once again, this is part of the reason why we do the news crawler services, because there's often a lot of stuff to cover. And we just put it all in one video. Another thing we put in a lot of places is smashamash.com/forum. If you haven't been there, check out the coronavirus section. And if you're wondering how we started things out, it was on January 23rd, long before anybody had anything locked down. What we said back then was, is it dangerous? Not particularly for healthy people. What are they and where did they come from? Let's go to a random page. Oh, let's just go to, I don't know, page 12, as there are over 30 pages. So this is how you use the forum, by the way. You just, go to a part. Let's go to part 12. And I'm just going to read you a random post. I don't know what's on page 12. I'm just scrolling down here. PA shutdown, yada, yada, yada. Coronavirus cases by county. We've created a massive timeline here. Uber and Lyft suspended pooled rides on March 18th or so. How about people reportedly coughing on cops, telling them they had coronavirus? That's a real smart move. By the way, that's considered assault and possibly aggravated assault, especially if you really believe you have coronavirus. Californians calling cops on neighbors if they hear them coughing. So if you want a really good timeline of how things were operating, here's what I said on March 18th. Let's put all of this fear, overreaction, and general ignorance in perspective. Want to know the real causes of death worldwide? 56 million people died in 2017. What caused their death? Cardiovascular disease. Mainly. So for some reason, people keep focusing on infectious diseases without knowing jack about them. So, yeah. As we keep seeing different, today hydroxychloroquine's good, tomorrow hydroxychloroquine's bad, today hydroxychloroquine's good, tomorrow hydroxychloroquine's bad. If you haven't checked it out, smashamash.com/forum. And thanks to all of our new viewers over there. So we're thinking about making merch, and we're always coming up with new ideas. What about a shirt that says, black bodies and black body radiation matters? Since all things matter, we like to keep notes on stuff. Now, yesterday I saw Aaron Paul driving a truck through my neighborhood, and I was pretty freaked out as it had a giant vat of liquid and a small front-end loader on it.
Alright, so that's pretty weird. I think I just saw Aaron Paul.
Maybe it wasn't really Aaron Paul. I didn't get a response. Were you aware that Quaker Oats replaced historically racist Aunt Jemima mascot with black female lawyer who enjoys pancakes sometimes? Just kidding, folks. It's The Onion. Are you having trouble differentiating the Onion articles from real articles nowadays? Yeah, everybody is. Check this one out. We're on Twitter also. And one of my latest statements was, well, I don't know. You'll just have to follow us on Twitter to figure that out. By the way, Tony Heller always has great tweets. And thanks again, everybody, for leaving all those wonderful comments. We appreciate that. Now, Spongebob is not gay. To quote Rob Gosnell, creator Stephen Hillenburg, who was a real marine biologist, by the way, was very clear in his belief that sexual politics have no place in children's cartoons, so the woke brigade waited until he was dead and then hijacked his creation and used their imaginations to suggest that SpongeBob is gay. So for somebody who thinks SpongeBob is gay now because Nickelodeon put out this tweet in their virtual signaling style, celebrating #Pride with LGBTQ community and their allies this month and every month. That does not mean SpongeBob is gay. Prevention magazine picked up the article also. Nickelodeon just announced that SpongeBob SquarePants is gay. So that's two sharticles, very easily found. And by the way, part of the reason why SpongeBob is hilarious is because it is a real reference to marine biology. What's so funny about it? Well, I'll tell you. A sponge is the simplest animal in the entire animal kingdom. So for a sponge to have a friend who is a starfish, who is vastly more complex than a sponge, and for them to have another friend who is a squid is hilarious because it must be the dumbest squid in the ocean, the smartest crab in the ocean, the smartest sponge in the ocean, and I don't know. I'm not sure how smart Patrick would be, but Patrick Star, probably a pretty smart starfish as he's able to talk and interact with a squid who should be like a complete brainiac. Now, if you're wondering how sponges reproduce, there are 3 methods. And guess what? They're asexual. So they do it by budding, by producing gemmules, and I don't know what the other way is. I don't really care. But the point is, sponges ain't gay. Get over it. Looking at weather.gov's weather map as we move into some value-added services here. To see some winter weather advisories in the northern Rockies, as well as, what is that one? Winter weather advisories and winter storm watches. Check it out. Let's look at the jet streams. Here are the jets of the eastern world. And we've got a lot of air moving east to west around the equator, the straight up wrong direction. Next, let's rotate this thing around and look at the jets of the west. Man, oh man. All right, there we go. And look at the extreme meridional jet stream flow. Once again, you've got this air here moving straight up to the southwest. Totally wrong direction for this air here, moving almost due west. Extreme meridional jet stream flow, to say the least. Look at how busted up the jet stream is. That is hardly even a coherent jet stream. Ask your pilot pals, they'll agree. Next, looking at water vapor maps. We're looking at pressure first on windy.com. Perhaps check out their mobile app as we let this advance via the GFS forecast, windy.com. Install it on your smartphone. Here's where we expect things to be based on the GFS forecast at 12 noon tomorrow. Next, looking at water vapor maps for Europe and Africa. Water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. And the reason we look at water vapor maps, folks, is because you can't see all the water vapor with a visible satellite. Water vapor that is not condensed onto a cloud would be invisible to a visible satellite. But water vapor satellites expose all of the water vapor. Next, looking at lightning maps, it's lightningmaps.org. Shout out to blitzertung.org for the fantastic site. And let's take a look at the lightning strike in Europe here. Moldova. Hey, Moldova. There's thunder rolling in. Next time you hear thunder, check out lightningmaps.org. It's a good time. You can freak out your foes and impress your friends by forecasting thunder in real time. And shout out to Wilmington. No, not Wilmington. Shout out to Virginia Beach. I don't think that storm's going to hit you. Next, looking at the Doppler Radar map here for the U.S. as we continue on with value-added services. And again, thanks everybody for leaving comments. We appreciate the viewership. Please tell your friends, tell your foes, tell your science pros and your science noobs all about the channel. Anyway, there's a situation going on there. I don't see any snowfall in the northern Rockies yet. A little bit of wintry mix happening. I guess the temperature is expected to drop. Let's look at the water vapor map for the U.S. And there's what's going on in the U.S. And we're going to look at this zone here with a massive pressure gradient around the North Carolina-South Carolina border. As there's a massive pressure gradient, if you're flying south to north or north to south on the eastern seaboard today, you will see massive turbulence. Anyway, there's that upper level low, which is right around this area, and it's all surrounded by dry, massive air. And it's going to stagnate for a while. Any other areas to look at? Let's look at this zone also around the Great Salt Lake, in case you're out west, to give you an idea of what's going on above your head for real. Some massive pressure gradients forming there as well as some great Hall currents in this area right here. See all those vertical lines, which are perpendicular to the mode of travel of water? That's real electrical phenomenon in the clouds, folks. That is not chemtrails or contrails or HARP. Hey, Smash Team. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Here's a view of the chat once again. Thanks everybody for contributing to the stream by leaving a comment. We greatly appreciate that. Again, please tell your friends, tell your foes. Consider supporting the channel via the links below the video. Thanks to our patrons, the real assistant and associate producers of the content. We're also on Subscribestar. Thanks to our one-time donors on PayPal, etc. We greatly appreciate it. And we're going to hit refresh to show you 0 sunspots. There's where sunspot 2765 used to be. And you can't really see very much evidence of it. It's kind of right there. But it's now officially set, so it will lose its name today. You'll still be able to see the magnetic fields associated with it on the colorized magnetogram. And there you see that. Otherwise, not a lot of stuff. The only other spot where there's a little bit of activity is up here, and it looks like it's mainly subsided once we look at the magnetic data. And let's look at one more view here. How about 193 angstroms, since we haven't viewed that yet today? It's a 48-hour SDO view. And thanks again, everybody, for leaving comments. We greatly appreciate that. Allow me to vanish. Remember to stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back. And may that covidiocy be absent from your multiverse.